It's Elko Live today on a Wednesday, and we are featuring in studio Elko County Commissioner Delmo Andreozzi in advance of this afternoon's regular meeting. In fact, Delmo, we're getting together this morning to accommodate schedules. It's another busy day, another busy agenda.
Yeah, there's no shortage of stuff to do, and I really had to do some I haven't had to walk across Slurry Seal in I don't know how long, so getting over here was a little bit of a challenge this morning. So, hey, everybody out there, that preventative maintenance, it's good. You know, it's a little bit of a hassle, but just be on the lookout for all the workers that are out there and be considerate, and they'll be out of there in due time. It's work that's really needed to be done on these roads to maintain them. But it can be challenging. You know, getting here this morning was a little bit challenging, but here I am.
And thank you for doing that. And we do want to mention, of course, our Commissioner Delmo Andreozzi started his career off filling potholes for the city of Elko, elevated certainly as to the assistant county manager or city manager.
Yeah.
No, we've got our county manager assistant manager doing cricket control. But here you are today as our county commissioner, and we really appreciate that. 12th Street is going to be the target of some Slurry Seal on Saturday, so they wanted us to put a mention in of that too. So give yourself extra time to get where you're going. PopCon's this weekend.
Yeah.
It's going to be busy.
Yeah, that's exciting. You know, I see that on the billboard there when I was driving by the ECBA this morning, and I can see the Ghostbusters sign. You know, I'll be out of town, but I know it's wildly popular, and it's really those community events like that are so cool to see. So if you have nothing to do this weekend, which is hard to believe, there's lots to do, but if you're looking for something different, new, and exciting, invite you to stop by the PopCon that's at our great convention center.
Cool. So Commissioner Andreozzi heading downtown Elko, 1:30 this afternoon. We'll kind of pick a few things. I mean, again, a lot on the agenda, but we want to make sure we get to some of these really pressing topics, and then we can jump back in. We do know, I spoke with judges earlier this week, and they sat down, the chief judges, Al Kaysen and Randall Soderquist, and we talked about creating specialty courts. That is on the agenda today. For a mental health court.
Did I miss that one? I'm not seeing where that one is. I may have missed that.
You know what? This actually has to do with the specialty court. It's the White Cloud Communications.
Oh, yes, right. It's
just
that
part
lease.
of their, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
You're good.
And I talked to Randall not long ago, just a couple of days ago, and he told me that they had a visit with you too, and I think that's great. And you know, we were talking to Randall about, because we get a lot of reports that come back to the commission from a variety of places like juvenile detention or the sheriff's office or other areas of interest, and I think that's great that they can reach out and kind of help. I would tell you that probably was the biggest transition that I had from the city to the county, is just that whole judicial piece. That is a big difference than anything that I had ever encountered, and it's a massive department, and they provide a lot of stuff, you know, and so I know that one of the target areas is like with that, you know, the mental health, which continues to be an ongoing issue, and Randall and I were specifically talking about a specialty court for. You know, for mental health, because and I think with the hospital getting some inpatient stuff on the third floor up there, you know, there are some key things that are falling into place. It's challenging, you know, if people are suffering with mental illness, you know, there's just not a lot of resources. I mean, primary care is difficult here, let alone behavioral health issues. So it's nice to see some of these things kind of come to fruition. It seems to be one of those things. I don't know. It just seems to be more of it. I mean, and maybe I'm missing it, but it just seems to be more of that kind of stuff. And you know, people need to they need to be in the right track to get treated, you know, so that they have the best opportunity for recovery or improved outcomes, you know. So there's a whole myriad of things that are tied to that, you know, everything from suicide to drug abuse and everything in between, right? So you know, I just hope that those are one of the things that we can help with some of the folks that are dealing with those types of issues. You know, I think about behavioral health quite frequently because to me, it seems like that's, if we as an individual, we can tell when something's not quite right, with a body part or something. But behavioral health one's a little bit, a little bit trickier. Yeah, the specialty courts, and they do have an item on the agenda. There's a lease for space that they use for one of the specialty courts, and this is the former Southwest Gas building there on Commercial Street.
Great, thanks, Delmo.
Sorry about that. I was not on the same page as you.
No, and it was perfect discussion. Again, it's just about the community responding to all these behavioral health needs. Addiction being one, but certainly the mental health, because the hammer approach isn't working, and so that's part of what the judges are trying to address.
Yeah.
So
and when you see, when you talk to ITOR and see, some of these folks with, it's just, it seems like it's ramped up, so, the jail certainly isn't a mental health facility, but there's a lot of that in the jail.
In fact,
right?
We're looking at an expansion, right? That's before the commissioners. It's not on today's agenda.
No, it isn't. That's something that we've talked about, and it's part of our priorities for our long-term capital needs.
Yeah, I mean, and that is on the list. I mean, there's so much jail expansion that could be $7 to $8 million bucks. We've got the Justice Center itself, which is anywhere from 44 to 72, I think, in millions, and you've got to rein that in. Their design, I think, being done on that, or ECVA, the $3 million the county's going to help with that for the balloon payment.
I'm certainly I certainly encourage that because it is a great asset. It's just one of those things that hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Well, you were on that board, right?
Yeah, and then you had what COVID has done, and we really that one of the things that's one of my really last big initiatives really with, and I've had the pleasure of serving on the ECBA board as a commissioner liaison, and really looking at rebranding and repurposing and really trying to, we've been through a strategic planning session, really trying to figure out, we absolutely want to be part of that tourism hub. The convention piece outside of like the mining expo, there's not a lot of convention, but like I'd mentioned earlier on about the PopCon, about its place in the community. It really is a community asset and a community facility and a place for the community to gather in much of the same way as what the community hall in Tuscarora or Jarbidge, it's the same, that's kind of the same feeling, so kind of rebranding it, calling it the E-Center because it's the everything, you can do everything in the center. So it's a great facility. The older part, certainly just like everything else, has gotten a little bit older, and there are some challenges there, but it's a great gathering place for the community.
And so we know commissioners are talking about the $15 million to Boys and Girls Clubs. That agreement is on the agenda today, Delmo. It is $15 million, so everybody is well aware of what that investment means. It would create a distinct arena. It would be for livestock events. The agreement calls for specifically the Silver State Stampede Rodeo. That would be their home, their location going forward. There'd be big concerts, a lot of year-round indoor activities that we're not able to currently host. Do you think the event center and the ECVA can work together and then at the same time not leave the fairgrounds in the dust?
Yeah, so this agreement that you have before you that the commission is going to look at is something, there's a lot of momentum and support for, I would say, commission support for this concept, right? Because it's not anywhere near ready to build. There's still a lot of hoops to go through, but there's a lot of support for that. So it was important for me, and I was heavily involved with modifying and amending this contract that's here. There's a number of provisions in the contract that were important to me, and we were able to get in there. We had our legal folks involved in that. And one of the provisions was specifically not to compete with the local, the idea is let's grow the pie, but let's not steal the pie, right? I mean, that's kind of the words that I would use. And I think we've got that crafted in the agreement quite well. And, you know, so like I said, there's a lot of hoops that need to go through. And another part that was really, really important to me that we were able to capture was, you know, I think the positive thing is you can take this money that we didn't anticipate, right, and really reinvest it into a community asset and leverage that with some private donations, right? And so you're getting a 2-for-1 bang for your buck, and hopefully have something that is great for the community and helps stabilize and grow the economy and all those other great things, because there's a lot of pent up stuff here. You know, people are looking for things to do, you know, so but you don't know whether or not it's going to come to fruition, right? And so I know it's important for the Boys and Girls Club to have a design, and it's important for them to have the dollars in a bank account that they say they have. So a couple other provisions that we have in there. It can't be commingled with anything. It has to have its own private account, all transparent reporting and all that other stuff. And really it's the first phase of it is just the design piece. So, you know, if they can't get all their entitlements or can't get the property or they can't get any of the private funding, you know, the worst that would happen is that we've invested $1 million in design, but it stops. So we minimize the loss. And so all of those things that were really important to me, I feel like we've flushed out, and I think like we were working in a very cooperative way to kind of get that done. So, you know, I mean, I was involved in it, and Rex was involved in it, Rand and Amanda, and then some representation from the Boys and Girls Club. So now we're going to be introducing it to the whole commission and see if they have any other concerns or if they support it, and we'll move forward from there. But this potentially could be at least setting the stage for the future event center, and even just. The other thing that's, you know, I think it's important that we don't confuse it even by what we call it, right? I mean, we got to be careful what it's called, because we don't want to confuse that with any of the other amenities that we have. And, you know, so just trying to maximize the investment, trying to minimize the loss, and make it something that's we can all be proud of going forward. But they've still got quite a bit of legwork to do to build. And that's the other thing. If they are not able to pull this off, you know, within 4 years, then that balance, that $14 million would come back to Elko County, and then. You know, any expenditure beyond the design, they have to have all the entitlements done, and have to have all that and the funding before they can start, you know, construction, and then all of those elements of spending any of that cash have to be presented and approved. So I think we have some really good sideboards that we've created, things that were really important to me. And I feel much better about where we're at. I feel much better about this agreement.
All right. That's on the agenda. Will be presented to the community today. One last, I think, or another outstanding question is, so do they get just the $1 million for the design, or do they get the whole 15?
Yeah, they'll get the whole 15. Again, it'll be held in a separate account, but they can't spend any of it other than the $1 million, because they're using it to say, look here, what, you know, we have $15 million for this project.
It's our earnest money.
Yeah, well, so that they can go
get more.
Okay. Yeah, that's the idea.
And so if for 4 years the interest on $15 million can accrue pretty quickly.
You know, I mean, interest has been good lately, but you know, it's probably, when you look at what inflation is, it probably wouldn't keep up with inflation. So I mean, it's something they need to get going on sooner rather than later. But you know, again, I think, you know, some of the property they've looked at, or you know, that they've gone through, you know, some of this is on RP&P lease. You know, I mean, those things don't. I mean, I'm just telling you from my experience. I remember going through RP&P leases, and they take a decade or two. You know, so you know, I'm just not sure how all that's going to work out. Like I said, there's still a lot of moving parts, but they're moving forward on that, and we'll just have to wait and see.
All right, and there'll be plenty of public oversight that's built into the contract.
Yeah,
too,
there is a lot of reporting, a lot of oversight, and again, those are some things that were really, really important to me. So I think we were able to capture that.
Thank you. Commissioner Delmo, Andreozzi, we're talking in advance of this afternoon's regular county meeting. That's just one of the agenda items. Something that I did want to ask about, well, I know the community wants to ask, really, Delmo, you have a unique perspective on this as both the professional realtor, as someone who's been in planning and on the county commission for a long time. It's not on the Elko County Commission agenda. It's on the County Planning Commission agenda next week, the Ruby Mountain issue.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds on that, because if for some reason it is appealed, it comes to the commission.
Perfect.
So I need to. I don't necessarily want to opine on the process. I want to let it go through the process. So, but there again, it's a process where people are, notified. The process is working, so going through that. And I would just say, when you talk about my experience, everything that we look at, everything. So was all part of a bigger piece of property. This was all a ranch or BLM land, or Spring Creek was the Silicky Ranch. That was a ranch that's been converted all to housing. And so part of that land is that. To me, I think that's one of the things that make America so great, because of private ownership of property and what can potentially be. It can be a great resource to create wealth and other things. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about downtown Elko or the Strip in Las Vegas. Las Vegas was all BLM land at one time. The vast majority, and that's all been converted into private property.
But you are talking about a national treasure. You're talking about building in the Ruby Mountains.
No, and I know, and like I said, I don't necessarily want to get into the opinion piece of that particular one in case it is appealed, but it is that piece that they're doing is private property. So there are lots of private property that are on the base at the base of the Ruby. So but I would just say that I'm glad to see that people are paying attention, and that's something I think that is so important, especially at the local level. People ask me, how do you recommend that I be involved? And number one, I would say, is you need to know who your local elected official. You need to know that. You should know that. You should know who you can call and who you can express concerns on. You should be following an agenda if you can. It's very easy today to get agendas and you can kind of watch what's these public boards, because they have to follow the open meeting law, and they do. And so, you can be informed of that. But, the other important thing is register to vote. I'm so surprised at how little, how small of our population really actively votes. So those are the kinds of things that I think that we should do as good stewards and citizens, is just kind of, because you can help shape policy, right? You can really shape policy. And this is a classic example, because I can't go anywhere with not hearing about it or seeing about it, and people are concerned. And I understand that piece, because I remember, Lori, and I'm sure you do too, the day that fire went up that canyon, right? I personally grieved, like I saw an old friend going up in smoke, So there's no question what the Ruby Mountains mean to us locals.
So this basically, just backing up a tiny bit, the zoning change that the Planning Commission will consider on August 16th would allow development of homes, a lodge, or retreat in that Ruby Mountain area. There has been a question of whether or not it's in the county master plan. Is that important?
It is, because the master plan, so Spring Creek basically is a master plan community, right? And so they developed a Spring Creek Lamoille master plan a long, long time ago that kind of talks about the desired, and that's how they created the zoning for the properties that were
Because there are
that were out there.
buffers and fire breaks.
Open space
right.
and all that other stuff.
Cool.
So this is, as I understand it, I haven't seen any of the documentation. Again, trying to stay neutral, is, from what I understand, is outside of that original master plan map. So, and most of the county isn't inside of one of these master plans like it is out there.
Okay. So again, just getting back to Commissioner Andreozzi's point, if you have an opinion one way or the other, some people might love to see like a lodge there or some beautiful custom homes in that area. If you have an opinion that you like to see it preserved, make those opinions or comments known to the County Planning Commission. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be there in person, but you can go to the meeting on August 16th, 5:15 p.m. in the Nanini meeting room, the same room commissioners meet in. You can also generate some unique comments. That's more effective than a petition, right? We know this from experience. Just write a couple sentences and make sure that you email those directly to planning commissioners so that they can be included in the record, and indicate, I want these to be included in the record, so that it's not just
right. And there's and we try to make that convenient. You know, people can participate via Zoom. It's kind of hard to get people to talk, because we're so busy. There's no one just watching someone raising their hand on Zoom, but we do have that feature available. But we also have, you can submit through Granicus. There are ways to submit comments on specific agenda items. So, and we see all those when those get added. Those are automatically published. So, and they do become part of the record. So there's lots of ways for people to participate, and I encourage you to do that.
All right. So we'll be reporting out on that as that approaches, of course, next week. Not on the County Commission agenda today, but that's a county planning matter for next week. But something that lends right into the next topic, Delmo, and I'm so glad that you've just done perfect segues. All this radio show today is how important community involvement is. In fact, we have a group of maybe 300 or so citizens. They are the Coalition of Nevada Voters, and they are urging the county to adopt hand counting and paper ballots.
Yeah, that is on the agenda as well, and I think they have good intentions, but from what I'm looking at this, and from what I understand, it doesn't comply legally with what the Secretary of State has mandated. There is a provision that allows you to do hand ballots, but this plan as submitted, as I understand it, doesn't meet the minimum requirements that's designed by the Secretary of State. And I would just say this: I think sometimes there's some confusion, and this gives me a great opportunity to kind of explain this a little bit. Is that we are a political subdivision of the state, and we aren't in a home rule state. We're in a Dillon rule state, which means we don't have the ability to, everything that happens to us is enabling legislation that comes through the legislature. They tell us what we can do and what we can't do. And the Secretary of State has a lot of authority to manage those elections within the scope of the NRS. So we know there's been a lot of changes to the election laws recently, and those are, that isn't something that we can just, we can't just supersede or overturn, because again, primarily we are a Dillon state. We're not a home rule state. We don't get to make our own rules. They have to be legislated, enabling legislation through the legislature that helps those to happen. So this is one of those things that I hear what the concern is, but it's kind of like, in a very simple way to say this, is kind of like barking up the wrong tree. I mean, this argument needs to really be taken to the Secretary of State or the legislature, and I mean, that's where all of these decisions are made. They're not made at the local level. So I think there are significant consequences for us if we, and I don't know what they are. I asked Rebecca if she could look into that, but what are the consequences if we did that and it doesn't comply? What does that mean? We're right in the middle of a general election, and if we didn't didn't follow that, what are there? I'm sure there would be consequences, So again, I know they're very passionate and they have their own ideas about that. I don't see how in the world that we can do what's proposed, because I don't think it's legal, in as much that it doesn't follow the Secretary of State's plan for ballot counting.
Okay, and that'll be again on the agenda today. And again, not to discourage, people's passion and involvement, because that's just what we've been talking about too. But there are, ways to involve and insert yourself in the conversations and enacting change. And as you said, being part of committees and registering to vote. And I think that in a lot of ways, some of the folks who feel disenfranchised, they're asking for a seat at the table, Delmo, and hopefully going forward and beyond November, that we can work better together, as neighbors. And
that at the end of the day, especially in the local government, we are absolutely neighbors, and I think, from my experience, everybody has, we're not all cookie cutter people. People have their own viewpoints and their own ideas, and we're not all exactly the same. We're all uniquely different, and I think that makes for a very interesting world. But at the end of the day, regardless of how people feel about a certain topic, at the end of the day, we are still neighbors. We still see people in the grocery stores or at a basketball game or wherever you might go, And so, and I do think for the most part, people really do try. I haven't really seen. Everybody has different areas of expertise and understanding and passion and all of that stuff. But I think for the most part, everybody, especially at the local level, really does try it to the best of their ability. I don't see, I've heard so many things over the years about a variety of things. Well, they're keeping Costco out of here or whatever it is. The whole time I was with the city, I never saw anybody from Costco show up and say, "Hey, we're looking to build." I never saw that.
Right.
And I'm not aware of anybody that was maliciously using their office to do that.
Right.
Which is a whole nother layer of NRS that you're talking about some stuff that would be very illegal, but all that to say that's I think the beauty of being in a small town, because I call it the sagebrush telegraph. You can get information from one end of this town to the other or across this county so quickly through the sagebrush telegraph. People are aware, they know what's going on. So
sometimes they think they know what's. Well, that's the problem.
That's the truth. That's true. But I'm just trying to say.
Yes.
I think people are. I think your elected officials. Everybody's a little bit different. I think I have a really unique perspective on all of that because of my experience and my history. It's super unique because I've seen both sides. Right.
Absolutely.
So, and I would just like to say also. Lori, as you were talking about that hand counting one, there actually is, we received notification, and I'm pretty sure it came through Granicus, of a group of people who are opposed to that too. So to your point about, being able to say that, you can, and I'll see if I can pull that up while you ask me the next question.
Thank you for bringing that up, because again, often we don't get to include the remarks of people. Here's the thing. County commissioners meet at 1:30 in the afternoon. Most people are working, and so it's hard. And then after the fact, they're impacted by a big decision or something, and they say, what? When did that happen? Mm-hmm. So it's good to know that there are all kinds of ways to participate, and that participation is welcome. I did want to say, too, Delmo, it is mystifying, the whole concept of, we have had report after report that's found no voter fraud, especially in Elko mm-hmm. County. There were a number of ballots that were returned. Their signatures needed to be cured. They were being held, and there were hundreds of them. They were posted online in this recent election in the primary, Delmo. Everybody had access to that. I went and looked at the list, and anybody who wanted to cure their ballot had the opportunity to do so. But that showed that it's working. Mm-hmm. It's working. If your signature isn't legible or it doesn't match, it's not valid. It's going to be held for a certain period of time. None of those that were held impacted any of the outcomes of the local election. The other thing that if we were to adopt hand counting or the paper ballot initiative, it could take a week to count those ballots using volunteers, as dedicated as they may be, Delmo. I've been reporting for the Associated Press for decades before, and Jeff Mullins was doing it from the Free Press before he retired. We know, however informally, that if Elko County were to adopt this kind of a system, we would simply be irrelevant in the big picture.
Well, I mean,
nobody's going to wait for our results.
Well, and that when I was talking to you about the consequences, we don't understand what those might be, and that could be. I mean, there could be a lot. Who knows what the consequences are? But it's very difficult, and I think that's the other thing is that. Unfortunately, our population, even though, we do have a good active voter poll. I mean, a big part of our population chooses not to participate for whatever reason. But that is very difficult to swing whatever, we have huge, massive voter blocks in Clark County and Washoe. I mean, just because of the sheer size. And I would tell you, I've been, watching these elections myself. I didn't participate because I was on the ballot last time. If you will recall, I didn't participate with there was an audit that was done after that election that some of the commissioners participated in. And so they went through that process. I didn't because I was on that particular ballot. But when I look at the results, I've never seen any anomaly there. I know I can see how many registered Republicans we have, how many registered Democrats we have, and independent. And then when you look at the vote tally, it kind of makes sense.
There might be some anomaly, something that's a report somebody's doing, right? Could show, but again, it's probably something that could be explained. It's not widespread voter fraud or. Right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of confidence. I think that here, people have been very, very. I can't speak for any other jurisdiction. I can just speak for Elko County. They've. I went and looked at those. I don't even remember all the acronyms, but the LVAT. I went to the machines and saw.
Right,
I saw.
Yes, you reviewed the audit that was done independently. Yeah. Okay.
So and again, I understand that, and when people have something that they're passionate about, I want them to feel good about saying something about it. People should be able to,
but hopefully to accept the truth,
the fact,
right after the fact.
Yeah.
So I know
it'll be interesting. I don't know where the rest of the commission is on this, but I can't imagine that we'll be able to do that because I don't think it meets the law as written by our Secretary of State.
All right. So that is the hand count. And besides, I guess in closing, when is the last time a Republican ever lost an election in Elko County to anyone other than another Republican? I mean, what's the big deal? What's all this fuss about? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Well, that's when I look, because you see that when you canvass that, I see that, and I'm not seeing any really wild anomalies. I'm not seeing really any big anomalies. There's no really big surprises to me.
All right. Well, of all the other agenda items, it is not on the agenda, but I know that you're involved in second source access issues for Spring Creek. They're that planning. That's part of the capital, I think, projects or.
Yeah, I mean, really that's one of those things. There's a lot of moving parts to that, and really what I was trying to do is say, okay, what we need to do, and I've been part of this discussion for far too long. It's kind of out there ethereally and never really been fully vetted or nailed down. The important thing is to have some kind of a feasibility study, understand what the best alignment is, what are we trying to achieve. But part of that is we have to understand because in Spring Creek, you're in a closed water basin. It's only got so much development that can happen out there, right? So what does that build out look like so that we build whatever infrastructure and appropriately locate it? And so it's important to identify the alignment and what specific goal you're trying to achieve so that you can start protecting the alignment, so you can start acquiring the alignment, because chances are much of that alignment's either going to go through private property or it's going to go through federal lands.
And the fact is, if we don't have water, then why bother?
Well,
Yes.
and that's the other issue. I think it's important for us to know what the ultimate build out looks like.
All right, more to come on this one, right, Delmo?
It's gonna take a while, but I think this is, I talk about development I kind of look at it kind of like playing golf. You don't stand on the first tee box and drive it to the 18th hole. It's a sequence of events that takes place. You got to get through each milestone, right, to get to the end. And that's really what we've needed. We've talked about it for years. We haven't really taken any steps. Everybody acknowledges that, you saw, and I think that, I can remember the days we didn't planning is kind of new to this region, right? We didn't really have planning. I remember City of Elko's first planner was Dennis Crooks in 1996. We didn't have a planner, that was looking at traffic circulation, that was looking at all those things, so that got built out there, and no one ever once said, I don't think, what happens when this is fully built out? What does that look like? And so here we are, because we can see kind of what it looks like, right?
Cool.
And so when we had that issue with the closure of the 12th Street Bridge, we saw the impact that had in the community. So there's no question that we need some solutions, but we got to find the right way. We have to know what it costs. We have to know who our potential partners are. Once we do that, maybe there are some federal grants that you can get. Maybe you can work with NDOT. There's all those other things, but until you iron out where you're going to go and what objective you're trying, it's easy to just say secondary access, but what does that mean? If we could create a secondary access, if it just comes in and uses the same overpasses, the bottleneck is Elko, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we want to eliminate the bottleneck, ideally you'd have to bypass Elko, right? So what's the best way to do that? Or maybe it doesn't matter, right? So those are all the questions that we need to have answered.
Thank you, Delmo. And I know in the interest of time, because again, we're recording early to accommodate really crazy schedules today. You wanted to weigh in, or at least the community is hoping to hear about cricket control. Mm-hmm. I want to thank Curtis Moore, because I know that he's actually been out there doing spraying for crickets.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that I can totally empathize with, this. I call it an invasion. It is sustained. It's been year after year after year. A lot of issues that surrounded it. They're very frustrating. It's very difficult to enjoy. You've been locked up all winter long. You can't get outside and enjoy your outdoors. I know a lot of the commissioners. I've been impacted on my property. The other commissioners have been impacted. So, I think from that perspective that we can empathize there. I remember the first incident we had when I was at the city back in, I'm forgetting the date, it might be 08 or 07 or whatever it was. It was like when that first happened, and I remember what happened. The hospital was in the main, I remember what happened at the hospital, and Curtis and I, a manager and assistant manager, up there on Elko Mountain baiting crickets. All we were it was all hands on deck doing everything. But there's a lot more rules. There's a lot more things. It's a real hamstrung environment. And then you look at how Idaho handles it, because it's not just it's just not a local issue. It's really pretty widespread. So it's really dealing with having conversations with our federal delegation. I've had lots of conversations with the Department of Agriculture. Dr. J.J. Goycochea, and he's actually been in Washington D.C. to talk to the USDA. Really trying to advocate for us, get us some money. He actually was really successful in getting us a good chunk of money for aerial treatment. But we have got to figure out a way to better manage them, because once they hatch, they're overwhelming. It's extremely difficult. So you had mentioned Curtis. We've there again. We're just trying to do the best we can. We spent some money out of our contingency fund to hire people. We bought bait. So we've been out there trying to do the best that we can. But again, we're a little bit hamstrung on where we can bait and how much we can bait and all those other things because of regulation. So, one of the ideas that Curtis had, which I think is a great idea, is have we have a weed district, right? So how do we make it weed and not just crickets, because there's grasshoppers too, but that type of a district where
pest
we can
control
have pest
stuff.
control,
Yeah, okay.
and then I think that's a good
Invasives.
idea. So
Okay.
and one of the things that I've asked for the last couple of years to the guy that's in charge, the state's massive. I think the state of Nevada has 3 people that are on staff, and I've talked to the director. How can we help? So we want to be. I keep thinking, well, if it was like the last time we had them, it was one and done. But that's not what we're experiencing this time. It seems like it's getting worse every year.
Sustained Mormon cricket invasion. More to come on that, Delmo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Just want to make sure people know you're well aware and you're working on the issue.
Absolutely.
All right.
Doing everything we can. It's a little bit of a daunting task. So, but we, again, I think the commissioners empathize with other people who are impacted by it. And it's not just, I think I told you before we went on the air, it's not just impacts for people at their homes or whatever, but this is impacting tourism. It's impacting being able to recruit and retain professional people. They don't necessarily want to come to a cricket invaded. And then, do we have people here that are just saying, because I've heard it, I'm fed up with these guys, I'm out of here, and so, those are all things that are, we need to try to kind of come up with some kind of a solution there for sure.
Delmo Andreozzi, our county commissioner, this afternoon's regular meeting at 1:30. Again, if you want to chime in on any of these topics or more, you can view it online, elkocountynv.net, and make plans for, of course, the Planning Commission meeting. That'll be next week. That is the one that involves the zoning of the Ruby Mountain, possible development, the change in zoning out there. Delmo, thanks again for the time today.
You bet. Thanks for having me in, and I appreciate this opportunity to at least provide my perspective to the community, So I appreciate it, Lori. Thank you.